How's it going, guys? Thanks for watching the replay. If you're not watching this live, if you are watching this live, feel free to ask questions and stuff, and we'll get to it once we can. So, little housekeeping. Let me know once you log in to tell me if you can actually hear and see me. I have no idea. I think I've gone live like this once on YouTube, so we'll have, I'm sure there's going to be technical difficulties. So I see that people are starting to come in. How's it going, Tony from South Carolina? Um, all right, Alan can hear me. Looks and sounds good. Excellent. So notice this. What's that about? Well, I have this because Nick is a golfer, but and there I go talking in third person. I know you guys love that. But the reason I'm wearing it right now is I got bit by a hobo spider, and I'm still dealing with that. I think I got bit probably 3-4 days ago while I was camping on a photo trip, and it doesn't hurt that bad, but the swelling is pretty gnarly and it's kind of gross. Hobo spider bites are no joke. It's gross. So I'm gonna, if you guys have questions, leave them, and then here in a little bit I'll start scrolling back through them, and we can talk about anything that I haven't already talked about. But Nick has fully made the switch to Sony, and I talk in third person a lot. Sorry. So before my switch, I shot a Canon 5D Mark IV, and I had a whole host of lenses that I was using. And my initial plan was that I was going to switch camera bodies, and then I was going to get a telephoto Sony because that's where the autofocus matters the most. And then I was going to adapt most of my other lenses using adapters like this Metabones. So I got the Sony A7R III, which you see here. This is the A7R III with the G Master 100 to 400 on it. And this lens was the one that I planned on buying. It is a gorgeous lens. It is so sharp. Autofocus is excellent. I was very excited about that. That was part of the plan. So one of the most common questions that I got when I posted my video that apparently was controversial, which I didn't expect, was, so how much is Sony paying you to switch over and sell my old gear and buy the new gear just like anybody else would? So I have the benefit of having a decent following on Instagram, and I actually sold all of my gear just through Instagram stories, which is crazy. That's not something you could have ever done 5 years ago. But basically, I took a picture of what I had for sale, and then people contacted me that were interested in it. We did PayPal, and we did that. So I sold, here's the list of gear that I sold. I sold a Canon 5D Mark IV. I sold my 70 to 300, which was my main landscape lens. I sold my 70 to 200 f2.8, which was my main portrait lens. I sold a Rokinon 24 f1.4, which was kind of my night photography lens. I sold a Tamron 90 millimeter macro, which was my macro lens. I sold my Sigma 150 to 600, which was my wildlife lens. And then that was the first chunk of gear that I sold off. And with that, I bought A7R III and the 100 to 400. Sony lenses are not cheap. When you get the G Master lenses, they are expensive. This lens right here is, I think it's $2,400, and the Canon equivalent is about $1,800. So there's a big price jump there, but I feel like the quality is a step above the Canon, and that's not something that you hear much about, but I feel like this 100 to 400 is sharper than the Canon. So the plan was I was going to hold on to my Sigma 50 millimeter f1.4 because this art lens is just a gorgeous lens. It's super, super sharp, and it could kind of serve as my fast prime for portrait photography. But I was going to hang on to my 16 to 35 and just adapt it because autofocus doesn't matter so much when you're on a tripod and you're shooting landscape photography. But the problem was, first I bought this guy right here. This is the Sigma MC11. This is one of the most popular adapters for Sony gear. And the reason for that is because it's cheap. This is like $160 as opposed to the Metabones. Notice I have both, as opposed to the Metabones, which is $400. So I started off with the Sigma because I have several Sigma lenses, and I was very hopeful that this Sigma would work. And after watching Dustin Abbott's reviews on it, it seems like these work the best with Sigma gear. So I have a Sigma 50. I also have this big guy here, which is a 120 to 300. And I was very hopeful that I was going to be able to hang on to all my Sigma stuff. So I bought this, but the problem with this is that it works great on Sigma lenses, not so much on Canon lenses. And my 16 to 35, well, and another problem is this doesn't have weather sealing on it. And my 16 to 35 is going to be my landscape lens where I'm shooting around waterfalls and in the rain. I need weather sealing for that. So for that reason, I bought the Metabones. The Metabones comes with weather sealing. Actually, it's not very weather sealed, is it? Well, yeah, the lens is weather sealed, but it's weather sealed on this side. Metabones has weather sealing. The problem is you still don't have autofocus in video. And one of the reasons for switching to Sony is that I'm doing more and more video for YouTube and for other projects. So having autofocus in video is an important feature for me because I'm going to be recording vlogs and stuff with this camera. And my wide angle lens is going to be what I'm recording those vlogs with. So the idea of adapting my wide angle lens was not working so well anymore. Plus, you're adding this much depth and weight to a lens. So if you were to put this on the back of a 16 to 35 Canon, not only are you starting off with a heavier lens than the Sony equivalent, but then you're putting on this adapter and now you got a longer lens that barely fits in your camera bag, and it's just kind of annoying. And autofocus isn't as good. So I eventually, long story short, I sold my Canon 16 to 35 as well, which was not part of the plan because I love that lens. That lens is probably the best wide angle 16 to 35 that's out there, optically anyways. It's just a great lens. So I sold that, and I've got now the G Master 16 to 35. The G Master is very, very sharp, maybe perform quite as good in the corners as the Canon, and the lens flare is maybe not quite as good as the Canon. I love that Canon lens, but it's lighter, and now I have autofocus and video. I have my two main lenses now are native Sony lenses, and so autofocus works excellent. Let's talk a little bit about autofocus with these adapters. First of all, Dustin Abbott has done an amazing job. If you don't follow Dustin Abbott and you're a gear nerd, you should check him out because he does very, very thorough reviews, and you should just check him out because he does way more thorough reviews than I would ever do because I'm too lazy to do those reviews. That's just too much work. I'm a photographer, not a reviewer. So with these adapters, you do lose something. I mean, but it's not so bad that like it's a miserable experience. I still have my Sigma 50 millimeter, and even with the adapter, I still get eye autofocus. I still get focus in video with the Sigma adapter, and it works pretty well. But I'm somebody that shoots all the time, and I am a full-time photographer, and because of that, I shoot photos every single day with my camera, and for that reason, those small little differences make a bigger difference to me than they would the average photographer because I just live with this thing in my hand. And what's the point of switching camera brands if I'm getting a lesser experience? So for that reason, eventually I'm going to be all native lenses, but it's such an expensive proposition to switch camera, switch out all your lenses and stuff that it takes a little bit of time. So this is my main setup when I travel, 100 to 400, A7R3, 16 to 35. And I really love how this feels in the hand. The Canon always had like a little wobble or something. You would feel the barrel inside like wobble around. but this doesn't have any of that. Uh, I love the buttons on the side of the lenses. I've had zero issues with the camera or the lenses whatsoever. I know lots of people are just so. It's interesting. Like on that video that I posted about how my experience with shooting with Sony, I was shocked at how like passionate people get about like. I had one person tell me that I've lost all credibility because I now am just another Sony fanboy, and that's to me that is just ridiculous. Like anybody can make a good photo, or a good photographer can make a good photo with any camera, and that is very true. But when you are a full-time guy that takes photos a whole lot, you might as well have the tool that is the most enjoyable to use and gives you the best image quality. And so, I'm somebody that shoots a lot. And for me, Sony was just more enjoyable to shoot with. And that was probably the biggest reason for for switching over. Image quality, so many of my photos are shared on social media that the image quality is only going to be noticeable when I print. And that's just the truth of it, or when I crop heavily, like when I'm shooting wildlife. But the biggest thing is it's just more enjoyable to shoot with. And another question that's kind of, and I think it's a smart question, is, well, Nick, if you have all these Canon lenses and stuff, why don't you wait until Canon comes out with its full frame mirrorless? So on to that subject. Canon and Nikon are both going to come out with full frame mirrorless cameras. And the reason that I switched anyway is because, for one thing, I'm kind of skeptical as to how amazing that first camera that Canon comes out with is going to be. I think best case scenario, it's going to be a 5D Mark IV in a mirrorless body with slightly crippled video, because that's kind of Canon's MO, right? Like the sensors are not quite as good as Nikon and Sony because they make them themselves, and they have this track history for the last like 7 years or whatever it's been to kind of cripple the video aspect, because they also sell video cameras and they're trying to push people towards that. So do I want to hang out and stay with Canon, or do I want and wait for that camera, or do I want to switch to Sony now? And the reason I switched to Sony now is, for one, I don't think the sensor's still going to be as good. For two, I think that the video aspect of it is still going to probably be crippled or shackled in some way. They're going to hold back on that. And three, anytime you come out with a new technology, there's always going to be some bugs, right? That you have to work out the bugs of that first generation. And I don't really want to jump in on a first generation product. And by the sounds of it, I'm going to have to sell all my lenses anyways, because it's going to have a different mount. So if I have to sell all of my lenses anyways, do I want to do it for the camera that's just coming out brand new, probably isn't quite as good? Or do I want to do it with the camera brand that is all on its third generation? It's already worked out those bugs and has a better sensor in it and has better video aspect. That was my reason for switching to Sony. And it's just kind of fun to have to learn a new camera. I am so used to Canon stuff that when I get another camera in my hands, I feel a little bit like an idiot because it's so different. It's so new. Terminologies are different. What used to be highlight alert is now zebras. What used to be beep is now called audio signals. I hate that about camera systems, but it's kind of fun to have to learn something again, and it keeps the brain working, and it makes it fun for me again. So that was my reason for switching to Sony rather than waiting for Canon. If I was a Nikon shooter, I would be far more patient, because Nikon has some excellent image quality with the D850 and stuff, and I'm more hopeful. I'm more optimistic about what Nikon is going to do with its mirrorless. You're going to have to sell all your lenses. You're going to have to, do that whole business. And then if you have to do that, it kind of makes, if you have to sell all your lenses anyways, it kind of makes going to a completely different camera brand a little bit more appealing, because it's something new. It's something fun. And I'm not the type of person to have like brand loyalty over what it can offer me, because, it's something new. It's something fun. none of these camera systems have shown any interest in me. So why, if they're not loyal to me, why should I be loyal to them? I'm just kind of, I want to have fun with photography. So that's kind of where I am. That's been what the experience has been like. I still haven't had a chance to really test the weather sealing. That's one of those question marks. But like I've said on my Instagram stories, I feel like the weather sealing is something that I can kind of fix, as far as like I can take a cheap plastic 30-cent bag and put it over my camera and boom, the weather sealing is fixed. I would rather not have to do that because I'm lazy, but at the same time, it's a 50-cent fix and it's not the end of the world. And I don't shoot in rain every single time. So that's pretty much my spiel. Why don't we go over to the comments here? Let me get rid of this guy. Or if I can, let's remove hide user on this channel. Okay. All right. So can I talk about how I developed my Mount St. Helens photo? So recent photo that I think I put it up in the announcement for this. Also, I don't know how many of my followers on YouTube actually follow me on like Instagram or Facebook or whatever, but you can find me, Nick Page Photography, on all of those. And if you're interested in my actual photography, you can find that. But I recently posted a photo from Mount St. Helens, and this is a shot that it's going to be hard to talk about it with. Anyways, in that shot, basically the obstacles I was up against was it was kind of a busy shot because you got logs, flowers, background, and the majority of it was just controlling where the eye goes and controlling contrast. There's also a 2-shot panorama because my lens wasn't quite wide enough to get a nice composition. So added a whole bunch of contrast using luminosity mask. I brought out the brightness of those flowers by doing the Royal Photographic Society of Northern Ireland. And then I'm teaching a short workshop there in Ireland. So that'll be cool. Hopefully we can run into you. Video is cycling. Yeah, so Joel says I should have kept kept Canon and saved money to get rid of my wood paneling. So that actually brings up an interesting point. First of all, there's lots of trolls on YouTube. And second of all, because I'm a full-time photographer, I spend the majority of my money and my income on photography gear. A lot of people spend money on, renovating their office or getting that big screen TV or getting that new couch or on their cars, whatever. Nick, I spend my money on camera gear because that's what I'm interested in. That's what I'm passionate about. And it's also how I spend my money on my camera gear rather than all the other little things in life. Let's see. What questions do we got here? Can you guys, how many people can still hear me? It's interesting. Apparently my video is not working. Just came back. Can you see me, Andrew? Keeps going out. So, okay, I'm back. All right. So side effects from the spider bite. So this is a hobo spider bite. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's gross. Basically, it started off like a big mosquito bite, and then it got more and more red, and then it gets like these black, almost blood blisters in the center. It's really, really gross. And then I felt a little bit nauseous for like 2 days, and I still feel a little bit under the weather, but not so bad. I haven't gone to the doctor for it yet. I probably should. But the biggest thing is just making sure that infection doesn't spread, because if that was to get in my bloodstream, it'd probably be bad. Yeah, hobos are gross. All right, you can see me now. Man, that sucks. That's the problem with this is when I sit here and I give a long spiel, I look over and oh, my video dropped out or whatever. I don't know. Um, yeah, so the switch to the A7R3 has been more positive than negative. Uh, Also, one of the things I was hopeful is this guy is my most expensive lens. When I bought this, it was like $3,800. This is a 100 to 120 to 300 f2.8 from Sigma. And this is what I've shot NFL with and sports and all kinds of stuff. It's a big beastie lens. I really was hopeful that I wouldn't have to get rid of it. And I found that with the Sigma adapter, it actually works pretty well. The autofocus isn't quite as snappy as it was on Canon. I was very excited that it works because I was really hopeful that this would work. So far it has. I haven't tried shooting any football with it yet, but I've tried shooting my kid running around and it's worked pretty well. What percentage of my camera is used spent on video versus photos? So far it's been 100% photos, but I plan on, once I get the right setup and once I have an opportunity, I plan on using this for that whole experience, and I'm going to use that in conjunction with my 16 to 35. Eventually, because a full-time photographer is a very bad thing, my backup camera is my 5D Mark III, which I still haven't sold. But eventually, my backup camera will be an A7 III. I just haven't. A person can only spend so much money, and I'm pacing myself on this. But eventually the setup is going to be having my A7 III as my video and portrait camera and my backup camera, and then my A7R III is going to be my main landscape camera. Buffering, that's not good. What lens would I take to Crater Lake if I only had one to take? 16 to 35 or 12 to 24. It's a big wide scene. You're going to want something really wide. Let's see. Any thoughts on Capture One versus Lightroom for Sony files? I don't have any experience with Capture One yet. Since I upgraded my computer, I've had no problems at all with Lightroom. For those of you that don't know, I upgraded my camera. It's been a couple months at least, and my computer. I upgraded my computer a couple months ago. I did a custom build PC, and I've had zero problems with it ever since. Lightroom just is super snappy. In fact, like when I'm culling photos, I can, as fast as I can hit my arrow key, it cycles through photos in the library module, no problem. So I can cull through photos just as fast as I could, like a photo mechanic or something. Will there be a second installment of Essential Photoshop for Landscape Photography? So Justin's asking about upcoming tutorials. I do have more tutorials planned. Haven't started filming them yet, but the next set of tutorials are going to be true start to finish